people have a really, really comfortable time learning how to pronounce East European names. They find a way to say it correctly.
Ever since you told me that the way that you pronounce your name, Saley, it's actually Saleh, right?
Yeah, yeah.
I always think that in the back of my head because when I say Sally, it's literally so white and so
Yes,
not who you are.
it
And the way that I even say it, I'm like, Sally, it's like this, like, I don't know. I just imagine a girl with like, blonde girl with pigtails, kind of.
is.
Um,
It's so
so
not who you are.
I
It's
know, and
really
it's
not.
not, which is, yeah, tell us about that, like that
The
experience
name,
of, yeah, tell me about this.
my full name is Salematu. That is my full name. It is Arabic. It has a beautiful meaning to wish and bestow health, wealth, and prosperity. It has a beautiful meaning. And where I am from, it is such a common name. It's like a Michelle.
Oh my God.
Like nobody would have an issue saying Salematu. Nobody. Moving to the United States, I'm like, I don't know what I want to go back. Do I want it to be Salima? Do I want it to be, my family calls me Matu. They just go for the second portion of the name. My nickname in my family is Matu. And um I get to my ESOL class, you know, all the things that go down in
Yes,
ESOL.
we
You know
talked
what the
about
things
this.
again.
Yeah. I didn't know that
My
it was called ESOL. I always say
oh
ESL.
ESL, right? I get to my ESOL or ESL class. My ESL teacher comes to me, seventh grade, and I don't know where she got this cultural competency from, but she asked me, what would you like to be called? Because she said Salematu perfectly. And it turns out that she actually is familiar with Guinea. She lived in Guinea for 4 years and was married to somebody from Guinea. Her son, like, she knows my culture. So she asked me, what do you go by? Because she figured, like, I must have a nickname. I told her, well, my family calls me Matu. And that's the only nickname I've ever had in my family. But at school, it's always been Salematu. She's like, well, I know in Guinea, people that have the name Salematu, they tend to go by Saleh. I was like, that's true. And she's like, are you okay if we call you Saleh? I said, yeah, I'm okay with this. But I think what was profound about that experience is she had a conversation. This was a Caucasian woman, right? Like when I think back on it, she, with everything I know, like she should
Good
have
for
looked
her.
different,
Yeah.
right? Good for her, right? She should have looked different. But she was a Caucasian woman that had done missionary work or whatever. Like, I don't think it's missionary work. I forgot the name of the other organization. And she was teaching English to kids in Guinea. And she came and had a conversation with me about how I wanted to be identified. And we agreed, Saleh. Where the plan completely backfires is the way she spells it for the English pronunciation is with a Y, when really the correct spelling of Saleh would have an accent on top of it, but English speakers don't know accents. She put a Y there. That somehow became Sally.
So is your name spelled Saley all the time, or is that just
Yes,
okay?
it's
Okay.
spelled Saley all the time
But there's an
because
accent in the E?
there's so the correct spelling has no Y. She,
Oh, so
she
she added
thought,
the Y.
yeah, she thought adding the
Oh,
Y would force people to know that it's not Sally, but people mostly go to the Saley route,
oh.
and I correct them to Sally. But
Okay. Ooh, that's hard. Yeah.
it's hard. It's really hard. And I don't I never used to take it personally until I think I got into professional settings and I saw that people have a really, really comfortable time learning how to pronounce East European names. they find a way to say it correctly.
Let's talk about that.
there there's somehow those last names are never pronounced incorrectly. I don't care how long it is. I've seen people, it gets out correctly. But I think that as people of African descent, we find a way to change our names to make other people comfortable with how they should identify us. And I think it was one of my biggest drives and inspiration for naming my son a traditional African name. I want people to learn how to say Jidena. If you see it and you don't know how to say it, I'm happy to tell you how to say it, but I'm not going to call him JD. I'm not going to call him J. My
JD's
family,
kind
we
of a
have
cool name though. It sounds like a
JD
football
is,
player.
it is,
Like a cool,
right?
like a popular kid that's gonna win like
A
like
lot of tournaments.
a lot of tournaments, but I also see him as like prom king.
Dude, to
He's
put
gonna
his
have
dreams
like a
out there.
cheerleader girlfriend. Ah, JD.
Could he could he be any more of the typical high school popular kid at that point?
I see it for him and I love it for him.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think that's been my relationship with names. Like it wasn't in the beginning. I found nothing wrong with it. In fact, I strive for people to call me Saley. I wanted to assimilate. I wanted to belong. I wanted to not be like I remember a field trip. There's so too many instances. Like she gets to my name and she's stuck. She's stuck. And I just called my name out loud. She's like, and she goes, "Yep, that's it. Thank you for saving me." And I was like,
I
"Oh,
have so many of those moments and as a kid, it's like I don't know what it does to a child's
yeah,
psyche. It definitely
uh,
does something to me
yeah,
because every time we have a substitute teacher and I know for a fact that this person is going to stop at my name and like
yeah."
freak out, like their reaction is worse than just honestly,
Trying.
if you're a freaking substitute teacher, if you're somebody who's going to be dealing with something like this, instead of freaking out about like, oh my God, I can't say this name.
Yeah,
Why don't you just say, ooh, I don't know how to say this name. Can someone help me? Or something like that. Or just
yeah,
say, "Oh, how do you pronounce your name?" Or like, maybe it's hard to figure out what the right way is, but the freak out and like the pause and like the look around and being
yeah.
like, "Oh yeah, that's it. Thank God, like I don't have
Thank
to say
God.
it." Dude, you're the adult, like figure out the nicer way to say it. And as
Hmm.
a substitute teacher, you've been in so many classrooms with so many kids with different names. Like figure it out. I think if it were me, I would probably go the route of like, oh wait, I'm having trouble saying this name. Could someone help me? Like be like, this is
Yeah,
my fault versus it's
yeah.
you're the one with a weird name. You know what I mean? Like
Exact.
that's
And I
your
don't,
freaking responsibility to
when you,
like be comfortable with another person's name. It's not their fault
yeah,
that that's what their name is. So
family,
don't
yeah,
make it like into a weird thing. And especially in school when you're a kid, it makes you feel so much more
different.
like different. Yeah, where as a kid, that's all you want is to be the same. And now you're being forced to be different simply because of who you are, and that is the
Hard.
core value, like the core experience as an immigrant person of like
Yeah,
I'm always going to be different no matter what.
yeah.
And it
It
does something to you.
it does. It does. And identities are formed through experiences, right? And if I start rejecting my name because each time it comes up, it reminds me of how different I am. I don't realize in that moment that by rejecting that name, I am rejecting a huge component of my identity, how I show up,
Oh my
right?
God.
It's
Yeah.
it's like it, it's such a little thing, but it's such a big thing, right? Like
Yeah.
I had a high school teacher, um, Megan Waldron, my journalism teacher, like loved her, right? I loved her for reasons you already know. Um, and that's one of the things that I remember the most about her as a teacher. She understood that she was a young Caucasian woman that was teaching in PG County, where more than 90%, 95% of her students were either Black or Hispanic. And the way she related to us, beginning with how we wanted to be identified, is one of the things I remember the most about her as a teacher. And I think for her, she just thinks like we loved coming to a class that allowed us to express ourselves because we're teenagers and there were no other medium for that. But she made space for that, but she saw us. Like she really saw us. And I remember her asking me, how do you say your name? How do you say your name? And she actually asked me the history behind how the Salematu gained a Y. And I explained it to her. And she was like, there could have been other ways of doing that. Someone wasn't very adept with like word verbiage and stuff like, right? Such a typical response from somebody who's a journalism major. Like, I could have manipulated those words a little better to give you your true name, which is Saleh.
Yeah.